Hi guys, and welcome to Comics and Chill, and today we are looking at Daredevil the Target by Kevin Smith and Glenn Fabry. So this is a bit of a strange one. Only the first issue of this series came out, and it's been in limbo for the last 17 years. And it was also around the same time that Kevin Smith's other Marvel series, Spider-Man and the Black Cat, had a 3-year delay. And in my research on this book, the whole reason that this series came to be is kind of a strange story. But we'll get to that towards the end. First, let's take a look at the book itself. Now, here's the cover I had. I couldn't even find a good scan or an image of the cover, including its title treatment, so I had to find this photograph. The story is kind of a sequel to Kevin Smith's 1998 Marvel Knights Daredevil series that he wrote the first 8 issues of, with artwork by Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti. And it takes place 3 years later, and therefore 3 years after the death of Karen Page, Daredevil's love. And the story starts with Daredevil not only mourning the loss of Karen on the anniversary of her death, but also mourning the huge loss of life from the 9/11 attacks in New York. Then we get the obligatory superhero origin recap sequence, and I love how Glenn Fabry has chosen to sort of show Daredevil through the years, showing him in the old yellow costume, through to his Born Again era, the weird late 90s costume, which I actually love. I know a lot of people hate it, and then back to basics in the red. And this is told whilst Daredevil is swinging across the city to visit the gravesite of Karen Page. Meanwhile, across town, we see a handler who is introducing 2 Middle Eastern men to Bullseye, who want to hire him for a job. They have a big target that they want him to kill, and Bullseye says he can handle it no problem for $20 million. The clients accept, but they first ask Bullseye to prove himself, to prove his ruthlessness and his skill, by making an orphan of a baby that's being cared for by its mother across the street. And Bullseye does this no problem, simply by flicking a toothpick across the street, straight through the window, and killing the mother. The client's next concern is the lack of Bullseye's costume. He wants to know why he's not wearing it. And Bullseye tells him that it's not a great idea when you're in his line of work to be running around dressed as a target. But to make them happy, he goes ahead and draws a bullseye right on his forehead using, I don't know what the hell that is, martini juice. I didn't think it would stain your skin in that way. But visually, he kind of syncs up here with Colin Farrell's take on the character from the Daredevil movie in 2003. I'm not sure if that was an editorial choice. Personally, I would have preferred to see him in costume, but I can imagine they probably wanted to sync the character up with the movie version at this time. And that's pretty much the whole issue. And the reason for the delay on this is the same reason for the Spider-Man Black Cat delay. Kevin Smith had gone on to make a movie, Jersey Girl, and although he returned to do Spider-Man and Black Cat, he never returned to this series. Though that doesn't mean that there wasn't an effort or more artwork drawn up for this. But first, let's talk quickly about Glenn Fabry. I loved his art throughout this, and I actually had no idea that he did interior comic art until I picked this book up. I'd seen his name on the cover of Preacher, and I knew he had a close working relationship with Garth Ennis. So I would be curious to know how he became involved in this project. A lot of what I see kind of reminds me of 2 artists, Frank Quitely, but also Jeff Darrow, especially in the small details that we can see here in this panel that Fabry's putting in there, and also with how the colour was handled by Paul Mounts. I loved the palette throughout this book. So as I mentioned, Kev went off to make his movie, and I came across this old blog post of his where he posted some artwork for issue 2 of this series, and this post is from 2005, and Kev says, "This miniseries has been an even bigger clusterfuck for me than Spider-Man the Black Cat was, and it's even later to boot. The first issue was written in December 2001. I turned in the script to issue 2 back in early 2003, but then I guess Adam Kubert got involved in Neil Gaiman's 1602, and because I hadn't turned in all my target scripts, the issue got backburned. Well, now we're getting back on track. I'm finishing out the series that never should have been, trying to make it fit into the current Marvel universe. So far, so good. I've heard that the Kuberts are going exclusive with DC, so I'm not sure what this means for the art shows for the rest of the series. But for now, here's Adam's rendition of The Man Without Fear and The Man With No Cool Nickname. And these are the two pieces of Adam Cubitt's work that Kev shared in that blog post. This is a beautiful one of Daredevil swinging through the city. Here's the pencils. And here are the inks that I found elsewhere by Danny Mickey. And then we've got more pencil work here, a scene featuring Bullseye. So as I mentioned, this series has kind of been in the making for 17 years now. And in researching this video, I came across a fairly recent article on Bleeding Cool, where one of the writers for Bleeding Cool met up with Kev whilst he was touring the UK with one of his podcasts. And the writer asked Kev if he still planned to finish the Daredevil Target series. And he says, Kev confirmed without hesitation that he would complete the book one day, and that the good thing about not finishing projects like this is that he's actually doing himself a favour when the work dries up. I'm not sure if I agree with that. Personally, as a comics fan, I get really ticked off when things are late, especially without good reason. So I don't know if this comment will come back to bite Kev in the ass. But I really wish that this series would have been finished. I love the art, and I like his writing. At this era, I like Kev's writing, especially on superhero comics, Green Arrow, Daredevil, and Spider-Man and Black Cat. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the reason that this book came to exist is kind of a strange one too. And in doing a little research for this video, I came across an interview with Kev in a book called Writers on Comics Script Writing, in which Kev said that he's not particularly proud of this series, and says that he wrote the first issue quickly so as to use Bullseye before the then current Daredevil writer Brian Michael Bendis would have a chance to use him in a story. So Kev was in a rush to get this done. And the reason for that is, after writing Bullseye's first appearance in the Marvel Knights Daredevil series, Joe Quesada felt that Kevin should be the one to write Bullseye when he returns. And so Kev held Quesada to his word, with Quesada agreeing so long as Kev started writing the Daredevil Bullseye story right away. And Bendis' Bullseye story was put on hold temporarily. With Kev having written this so close to the 9/11 attacks, and with it being released only a little over a year later, the ramifications of the attacks sort of feature quite prominently in this story. And so if Kev is to continue writing this series, I find it hard to believe that he's going to be able to tie it in with the current Marvel universe. It would definitely have to be set at the time of its creation. And I also feel that in today's day and age there would be a lot of complaints about the language used, as well as the treatment of the Middle Eastern characters in this comic. I don't know if Adam Cubitt actually finished issue 2 or how close he got to that, but I would actually like to see this series continued, even if it is with a different artist every issue. That could actually be kind of interesting to see. And after Kev revealed that the target that Bullseye was hired to kill was Captain America, I would be really interested to see this story finished out the way it was intended. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thanks for checking out today's video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on social media, tell a friend, and have a great day. And I'll be back tomorrow.